Have you ever sat in the stillness of night and felt the quiet weight of absence pressing against your heart, that silent ache that makes you wonder if the ones you have loved and lost are truly gone, or if perhaps they are closer than your mind dares to believe? This question came to me not as a matter of curiosity, but as a wound that demanded healing. It began when I received a call that would change my days and my prayers forever. A dear friend of mine, Sarah, after a long battle with illness, had taken her final breath on earth and gone to be with the Lord. She was only 38. A mother of 2 children, a radiant believer, a woman whose laughter could brighten even the most clouded room. At her funeral, as her daughter Emma clung to my hand, she looked up at me with eyes that carried more innocence than pain and whispered the question that pierced me deeper than any sermon or scripture study ever had. Mr. Jonathan, can my mommy see me from heaven? Can she watch me when I am sad? Can she still know what I am becoming? I opened my mouth, but the words I offered were thin and fragile. I told her what people usually say in moments like this, that her mother loved her, that she was safe, that one day they would see each other again. Yet, inside, I was undone. I realized in that moment that I did not truly know the answer. I felt the responsibility of her gaze. The child deserved truth, not polite comfort. For nights afterward, her question would not leave me. I would lie in bed, staring into the dark, imagining the faces of those I had loved and lost. My grandfather who raised me when my father left. Friends I had buried too soon. I wondered if they knew how much they had shaped me, if they were proud of the choices I had made, if they celebrated when I celebrated and wept when I wept. Was love stronger than the veil of death, or did it fade into silence? This became more than theology for me. It was a cry of the human heart. I noticed how often people carry the same longing, though they rarely voice it aloud. The mother who lost a child and wonders if her baby still feels her love. The husband who lost his wife and wonders if she knows he still wears his wedding ring. The daughter who lost her father and wonders if he watches her walk across the graduation stage. These are not idle questions. They are the very aches that shape our nights and our prayers. I grew up hearing different opinions. Some teachers said that once people go to heaven, they are so consumed with worship that they no longer have any awareness of what happens here. Others insisted they can see everything at all times but cannot intervene. Still others said our loved ones become angels assigned to us. The variety of voices created more confusion than peace, and so I carried the question silently, unsure what to believe, until Emma's innocent words forced me to face it. My work on The Chosen had trained me to study scripture with hunger. Playing the role of Jesus meant searching for his heart, learning his words, immersing myself in his compassion. But now I was not preparing for a scene. I was desperate for an answer that could lift the weight from a little girl's soul. I began reading passages with new urgency. I pored over Hebrews and its mention of the great cloud of witnesses. I considered the words of Revelation that speak of saints before the throne. I searched the Psalms for clues about the nearness of those who sleep in the Lord. Yet the more I read, the more I felt my spirit crying for something beyond text. I needed encounter, not only interpretation. During those weeks, I also began to dream of my grandfather. In the dreams, he did not speak much, but he was there, present, looking at me with pride. I would wake with tears and wonder if these were only memories conjured by my longing, or if in some way he truly was near. Each dream stirred more questions. Was I being comforted by imagination, or was I tasting a mystery that had always been real but never explained? It was late one evening when the weight became unbearable. I had tried reading, I had tried reasoning. None of it gave rest to my soul. I walked into my prayer room, lit a candle, and let the silence settle. I whispered into the stillness, Jesus, please, people are hurting, children are aching, parents are grieving. We need to know if the love we hold is stronger than the grave. Show me what is true. The air felt heavy with anticipation. I was not seeking visions. I only wanted peace. Yet I sensed that heaven itself was drawing close. My heart trembled with both fear and hope. What if the answer was not what I longed to hear? What if the truth was colder than the comfort we speak to each other in funerals? But then I remembered that truth in the hands of Jesus never brings despair. Even when it cuts, it heals. Even when it challenges, it restores. So I opened my heart fully and said again, Lord, I am ready. Teach me. In that moment, the room around me seemed to fade. I cannot explain it in earthly language, but it was as if the veil between realms grew thin. I was in a garden that felt both earthly and heavenly. The light was golden, gentle, filling the air with warmth. There was music too, not a melody I could hum, but a harmony my soul could feel. And then he was there, Jesus. His presence was not loud, not overwhelming. It was steady, calm, filled with a love that settled every fear. He looked at me as if he already knew the questions that burned in my heart. "Jonathan," he said softly, "you have carried the sorrow of many. You have carried Emma's question and the questions of countless others. They need to know the truth about love. They need to understand how eternal it really is." I felt my knees weaken. "Lord," I whispered, "people are desperate. They want to know if their loved ones see them. They want to know if the bond continues. Little Emma needs to know if her mother still sees her tears at night. What is the truth?" He smiled, and in that smile was both tenderness and power. "The answer is more beautiful than you imagine. Love does not end at the grave. It is transformed. The connection between those who belong to me is never broken. It deepens beyond what human minds can grasp." He gestured toward the garden, and suddenly the air shimmered like summer heat rising from stone. Before my eyes opened scenes of earth, people in their homes, their daily lives, their joys and their griefs. Yet there was more. I sensed presences with them, not shadows, not ghosts, but a kind of loving awareness. Those who had gone to heaven were not detached spectators. They were present in a way purer than physical nearness. Jesus spoke again. "This is how it works. Those in heaven do not watch like humans watch a play. They perceive through my peace. They sense love without being burdened by sorrow. They rejoice without being weighed down by loss. They see what matters most, and they carry no anxiety because they are in my perfect joy." I watched as a child knelt by her bed whispering to a photograph of her mother. And though the child's words were quiet, I could sense the mother's love wrapping around her from heaven, not with hands, but with spirit. The connection was real, unbroken, purified. Tears welled in my eyes. "So the love continues," I said. "The love is eternal," Jesus replied. "What is born of love in me cannot die. It only becomes what it was always meant to be." I stood in awe, trembling. The question that had tormented me for weeks was being answered not with theory, but with revelation. Yet I felt there was more. Jesus looked at me with that gaze that pierces to the soul. "There are 7 truths about this mystery. I will teach them to you so you can comfort those who grieve and give peace to those who question. But first, you must let your own heart believe. Your grandfather has never been far. His love has been with you, though your eyes could not see it." At that moment, I felt warmth surround me, like being embraced, though no arms touched me. Memories of my grandfather flooded me, his laughter, his voice, the way he guided me through childhood. And now, in that golden garden, I knew he was aware, he was proud, and he was still loving me. My tears fell freely. For years I had wondered if my prayers toward him were only echoes in my own mind. Now I understood that love is not hindered by death. It flows through eternity, anchored in Christ who conquered the grave. And Jesus, with eyes that shone brighter than the light around us, said, "Are you ready to learn the truths that will set many hearts free?" I sat in the golden garden trembling with both relief and anticipation. The tears had not stopped since Jesus spoke the words that pierced my heart. Love does not end. It is transformed. The garden around us pulsed with a life that felt both familiar and eternal, as if creation itself was breathing in rhythm with his words. Jesus looked at me, and his eyes were steady, full of compassion, yet carrying an authority that made me know this moment would change everything. He said, "Jonathan, you asked if your loved ones see you, if they know your heart, if they can witness your journey. What I am about to show you will not only answer your question, but will heal the hearts of many who wonder the same. There are 7 truths that reveal how love bridges the distance between heaven and earth." I held my breath, knowing that what came next was not just for me. It was for every grieving widow who whispers into an empty bed, for every parent who kisses a photo goodnight, for every child who longs for the embrace of a father or mother now resting in eternity. Jesus raised his hand gently as if to mark the beginning of a lesson not written on paper but inscribed in the heart. "The first truth," he said, "is that those in heaven experience perfect awareness without earthly burden. They know the love of their family, they sense the moments that matter, but they are not weighed down by the sorrows that trouble earthly hearts. Their awareness is filtered through my peace. They see with eternal eyes. They recognize joy, they understand grief, but they are never consumed by sadness, for in my presence there is fullness of joy." I saw images before me of families on earth, children playing, spouses weeping, parents celebrating milestones, and with each scene, I sensed a presence. The awareness of their loved ones in heaven was there, not anxious, not heavy, but calm and filled with love. It was not the burdened gaze of someone helpless. It was the peaceful knowing of one who sees all things through the certainty of God's redemption. I felt my heart race. "So they know," I whispered, "but without pain." "Yes," Jesus replied. "They see what matters most. They are aware of your love, your growth, your faith, but they do not carry worry. They do not suffer as you do. They live in the certainty that all things work together for good." He paused, letting the words sink deep into me. Then he continued, "The second truth is that love creates an eternal connection that death cannot break. When someone loves deeply on earth, that bond does not dissolve when they enter eternity. It becomes purified. It is made perfect. What is born of true love in me only strengthens as it passes through the veil. This is why the ache in your chest, Jonathan, is not just memory. It is connection. This is why Emma feels her mother's love even when she cannot see her. The bond has not ended. It has been perfected." I felt as if the very air in the garden trembled with the weight of that truth. My thoughts went back to my own grandfather, to the dreams where he seemed to stand proud and close. I realized those dreams were not mere nostalgia. They were echoes of a bond that could not be broken. I looked at Jesus, struggling to form words. "So the connection is not only real, it is stronger. Stronger than death," he said firmly, "because death is defeated. It cannot sever what love has sealed." At that moment, I felt waves of comfort wash over me. I thought of all the people who carry guilt because they never said goodbye properly, or regret because their last words were harsh, or fear because they wonder if their loved ones remember them at all. Now I knew the truth. Love does not dissolve. It endures beyond every failure, beyond every silence, beyond the grave itself. Jesus then lifted his hand again. "The third truth," he said, "is that your loved ones in heaven do not become strangers to you. They do not lose who they are. They become the fullest version of who they were created to be." Sarah is still Emma's mother, a mother's love, purified of fear, purified of sorrow, purified of weakness. She is more herself now than she ever was on earth. Your grandfather is still your grandfather. His love for you is now perfect, without disappointment, without weariness. They remain who they are, but without the limitations that shadowed them before. I saw again the face of my grandfather, radiant, whole, vibrant with a joy I had never witnessed in his earthly years. It was him, unmistakably him, but alive in a way that transcended every frailty he once carried. I could not stop the tears. To know that those we love remain themselves, yet perfected, is to know that the relationships we cherish are never swallowed by loss. Jesus spoke softly but with strength. The fourth truth is that those in heaven can impart comfort and peace in ways that transcend physical presence. They cannot override human choice. They cannot change the course of free will. But they can, through my spirit, allow their love to touch you. When you feel a sudden peace while grieving, when comfort comes without explanation, when dreams bring assurance, this is often the participation of their perfected love woven together with my spirit to embrace your soul. I remembered moments when I had been grieving and without cause felt a deep calm fall upon me. I had thought it coincidence. Now I understood it differently. I lifted my head. So, when Emma feels her mother's love, she is not imagining. "No," Jesus said with a gentle smile. "She is receiving a comfort that is real, though unseen. It is not her mother acting apart from me. It is her mother's love perfected in me, expressed through my spirit. It is safe. It is pure. It is eternal." I nodded, overwhelmed. The truths were unfolding like rivers pouring into the valley of my questions. Each one carried healing. But Jesus was not finished. "The fifth truth," he said, "is that your loved ones in heaven are not sad about being separated from you. They see the bigger picture of eternity. They know that the separation is temporary. They see the good being worked in your life even through grief. They rejoice in the hope of reunion. They are not weighed down by missing you because their joy is complete in me. They anticipate reunion without sorrow because in eternity, time is not like on earth. What feels like decades to you feels like a breath to them. I gasped as the magnitude of this truth struck me. How many of us have imagined our loved ones longing, waiting in sorrow, hoping for time to pass? Yet here was Jesus telling me that heaven does not know that kind of waiting. They live in fullness, in joy, in anticipation, without ache. Their love for us is not diminished, but their pain is gone. I felt my chest loosen. The guilt that I had sometimes felt, wondering if my grandfather was missing me with sadness, lifted. Instead, I realized he rejoiced in the certainty that one day we would meet again. And until then, he lived in perfect peace. Jesus looked into my eyes as if reading my heart. You must tell people this, Jonathan. They need to know their loved ones are not in sorrow. They need to know the ones they miss are not suffering loss. They need to know that grief belongs to earth, but joy belongs to heaven. This truth will free them from imagining their loved ones in sadness. At that moment, I felt as though countless grieving hearts were being healed, even before I spoke a word aloud. And then Jesus said, the sixth truth is about communication. It does not happen through human methods. It does not happen through signs manipulated by superstition. It happens through my spirit. Your loved ones cannot send messages in ways that the world imagines, but their love can be felt, their presence can be sensed, because my spirit is the bridge. Dreams, sudden peace, words of comfort rising in your heart. These are not accidents. They are expressions of love purified by heaven, communicated through me. I felt the holiness of this truth. It closed the door on fear of counterfeit voices, yet opened the door to real comfort. Finally, Jesus lifted his hand once more. The seventh truth is that your loved ones in heaven are not idle. They are not waiting in boredom. They are engaged in the magnificent work of heaven. They worship, they grow, they prepare for the day when heaven and earth become one. Their lives are filled with purpose, with anticipation, with joy. And in the midst of all this, their love for you remains unique. Their love for you is not lost in the multitude. It is kept personal, eternal. As he spoke, I saw a vision of multitudes in heaven, radiant and full of purpose, each carrying perfect love not only for all, but also for those they held dear on earth. And yet within that vast love, I could sense the particular bond, the unique relationship that each one carried. A mother's love for her child, a husband's love for his wife, a grandfather's love for his grandson. Nothing was lost. Everything was fulfilled. The garden grew brighter, and I could hardly contain the flood of revelation. My heart was alive with truths that would comfort millions. Yet I also knew this was only the beginning. For Jesus looked at me and said, "You have heard the 7 truths. Now you must see them lived. There is someone who longs to speak with you." My breath caught as I realized what was about to happen. The air in the garden seemed to shimmer as Jesus spoke those final words. There is someone who longs to speak with you. His smile carried both tenderness and mystery, and I felt my heart begin to race. I turned, and in the distance I saw a figure approaching. At first it was only a silhouette against the golden light, but as he drew nearer I knew without question who it was. It was Papa, my grandfather, the man who had raised me after my father left, the man whose hands had taught me strength, whose words had given me courage, whose presence had anchored my childhood. He had been gone for 15 years, yet here he was, radiant, whole, more alive than I had ever seen him. My knees buckled under the weight of the moment. Tears blurred my vision. "Papa," I whispered, my voice breaking. He smiled, the same smile I had known as a boy, yet now filled with a peace that no earthly sorrow could dim. "Hello, my boy," he said, and his voice carried warmth that wrapped around me like an embrace. I fell to the ground, overwhelmed. "I have missed you so much," I cried. "For years I wondered if you could see me, if you knew what became of me, if you were proud of the man I have grown into." I carried the ache of not knowing. Papa knelt beside me, and though his hands did not touch me in the way they once had, I felt his love surrounding me with even greater power. "Jonathan," he said softly, "I have seen every step. I have known your journey. I celebrated when you found your calling. I rejoiced when you gave your gifts to the service of God. I have watched as you carried the burdens of others with compassion. I am proud, not only of what you have done, but of who you are." I could not hold back my sobs. 15 years of longing poured out of me in that moment. All the nights I had spoken into silence, hoping he might hear, all the times I had wondered if the bond was broken, all the fear that my words had been only echoes. Now I knew the truth. He had heard, he had known, he had loved me still. Jesus stood nearby, his presence like a gentle flame. He said, "This is why I brought you here, to know that the connection is real, to know that love continues, to know that you are not alone." I turned to Papa with trembling lips. "I was afraid," I admitted. "I feared that the bond was gone, that you had no knowledge of me, that when I spoke to you, it was only to myself. I feared you had forgotten." Papa's eyes filled with light. "Forgotten," he said with a laugh that carried joy rather than sorrow. "Jonathan, love does not forget. Love remembers in eternity. Every word you spoke to me I knew. Every time you carried my memory I was aware. The love we shared was not lost in death. It was transformed. It became eternal. I have never stopped loving you, and I never will." The peace that entered my heart was beyond description. It was as though chains had fallen away. The doubt that had weighed on me for years was gone. I felt lighter, freer, embraced by the certainty that my grandfather's love had not vanished into silence, but had become part of a greater symphony of eternal love. Jesus stepped closer and placed his hand upon my shoulder. His voice was gentle but firm. "This is not only for you, Jonathan. This is for every soul who wonders. The father who fears his child has forgotten him. The daughter who wonders if her mother still cares. The widow who longs for her husband's voice. You must tell them. You must tell them that love remains, that bonds are unbroken, that eternity is not a place of distance but of perfected nearness." I nodded, unable to speak for the tears that still flowed. Papa looked at me with eyes that were both familiar and new, both earthly and heavenly. "You must also tell them this," he said. "We are not waiting in sorrow. We are not idle. We are not sitting in silence. We are alive, engaged in the glory of heaven, filled with joy. Yet our love for you is not diluted by the vastness of eternity. It is personal, specific, unending. My love for you remains yours alone. Sarah's love for her daughter remains hers alone. These bonds are eternal." I listened as every word sank deep into me. This was the answer to Emma's question. Her mother had not ceased to be her mother. Her love had not been swallowed by the grave. It had been made perfect in heaven, where no fear, no sorrow, no weakness could touch it. I lifted my gaze to Jesus. "Lord, this truth is too beautiful. How can I carry it? How can I explain it to those who are broken by grief?" He smiled with infinite patience. "You do not need to embellish it. Simply tell what you have seen. Speak the truth, and my spirit will bear witness in their hearts. The peace you feel now will be the peace they feel as they hear it. You are not meant to convince by argument. You are meant to testify by love." The garden grew brighter, as if the very air responded to his words. Papa stood, and though he seemed to prepare to leave, he leaned close once more. "Jonathan, do not waste your days in fear or regret. Live fully, love deeply, serve faithfully. We want you to embrace the gift of earthly life until the day you join us. Do not think of us as lost. Think of us as loving you from another place, waiting with joy for the reunion that will surely come." I wept again, not from sorrow, but from gratitude. For years I had carried questions that gnawed at me. Now I was free. Jesus looked at me with compassion that seemed to stretch across eternity. "There is still more to see," he said. "You have heard the truths. You have experienced reunion. But now you must understand why grief still remains on earth and how my presence transforms it into hope." I breathed deeply, trying to steady myself. "Lord," I said, "so many live in torment because they feel only absence. They feel nothing of this comfort. What do I say to them? How can I tell them that their loved ones are near when they feel only silence?" Jesus nodded. "This too I will show you. Grief is part of love. It is natural. Yet grief without hope becomes despair. My desire is not to erase grief, but to transform it. Your loved ones do not want you to remain in sorrow. They want you to find joy again, to live with fullness, to walk with peace. The silence some feel is not absence, but invitation. An invitation to lean into me, to find comfort in my spirit, to discover that the connection is real even when the senses cannot perceive it. This is how faith and love work together. The bond remains even when the feeling fades. Papa added, Jonathan, tell them that we do not hold disappointment. We see through eyes of grace. We do not carry grudges. We do not dwell on words unsaid. We love with purity now, and all we long for is your healing. I could barely contain the depth of what I was hearing. The lies of despair, the guilt of unfinished words, the fear of abandonment, every one of these was being undone by truth. The garden pulsed with light, and I knew this encounter was not meant only to comfort me. It was meant to ripple outward, to reach grieving hearts across the world, to tell them that their tears are seen, their questions answered, their bonds unbroken. As Papa's form began to fade into the brilliance of the light, he turned back one last time. I love you, Jonathan. I am proud of you, and I will be right here until the day we meet again. His voice lingered even after the vision shifted, and I clung to those words as though they were a lifeline. For they were. They were not for me alone. They were for every son, every daughter, every spouse, every parent who longs to know if love truly endures. Jesus stepped forward, his presence filling the garden with calm. Now you understand, my son. Death is not the end of love. It is love's transformation. Share this truth with boldness, for it will heal the brokenhearted and set them free. The garden shimmered with peace, yet within me another question stirred. My tears had shifted from sorrow to gratitude, but I could not ignore what so many carry every single day. Grief is not a stranger to humanity. It sits at every funeral, it lingers in empty bedrooms, it waits in the spaces where laughter once rang. Even knowing what I now knew, I still felt the ache of loss. I turned to Jesus, unable to hold back the cry of my heart. Lord, if love endures, if our bonds remain, why then do we feel such pain when someone we love leaves this world? Why does grief still crush us? Why do we feel abandoned when the connection is not broken? Jesus looked at me with eyes so full of understanding that I felt my soul lay bare before him. Jonathan, he said gently, grief is the echo of love in a world still touched by mortality. It is the natural cry of a heart that was created for eternity, but experiences separation for a time. To love deeply is to grieve deeply when the one you cherish is no longer beside you. Grief itself is not sin, nor weakness, nor failure. It is love longing for reunion. I listened, my chest heavy, but his words began to unravel knots I did not know I carried. But, Jesus continued, grief without hope becomes despair. That is what I came to destroy. I do not ask my children to deny their sorrow. I ask them to grieve as those who know the separation is temporary. When they understand that their loved ones live in my presence, that love endures, that reunion is certain, grief is transformed. It becomes a passageway to hope, not a prison of despair. The garden around us seemed to echo his truth. The trees, the flowers, the very light spoke of renewal. I remembered the funerals I had attended, the weeping that filled the air like a storm, the whispered questions. Do they still see us? Do they still know us? Are we truly separated forever? I realized now that every tear had been part of the longing for eternity. Lord, I asked softly, what about those who feel nothing? They do not sense the presence of their loved ones. They feel only silence. What do I tell them? Jesus stepped closer. Tell them this. Silence does not mean absence. Silence is often an invitation to seek my presence first. For while the connection with their loved ones remains, I desire to be their primary comfort. If they lean too heavily on the sense of their loved one and neglect my voice, they will not find the fullness of peace. So at times I quiet the awareness so that they may draw near to me. The bond is still real, but I must remain the source of their hope. My heart swelled with the weight of this truth. It explained why some who grieve feel comfort quickly, while others feel only emptiness. It was not punishment. It was not proof that the bond was false. It was the gentle redirection of a father who longs for his children to rest in him. And there is more, Jesus said. Sometimes grief itself numbs the senses. The heart in deep sorrow cannot perceive spiritual realities clearly. Pain can cloud perception. But even then, love remains. Even when the grieving cannot feel it, the bond is still true. I hold it in my hands until they are healed enough to sense it again. I thought of people I had spoken to, friends who had lost spouses or children and confessed they felt nothing at all. Their despair had grown because they assumed silence meant absence. Now I understood. The silence was not the end of love. It was the invitation to deeper faith, the assurance that the bond was held safe by Christ himself. Papa's words from earlier echoed in my mind. We do not carry disappointment. We see through eyes of grace. I realized that grief often carries with it guilt. The living remember words they never spoke, arguments never resolved, gestures of love never given. They torment themselves, imagining their loved ones disappointed or hurt in eternity. I asked Jesus, Lord, what about this guilt? What about people who fear their loved ones are disappointed with them? His face was filled with compassion. Those in heaven see through my eyes. They understand human weakness with perfect clarity. They do not hold grudges. They do not carry resentment. They do not measure love by earthly failures. In heaven, love is purified. What remains is not judgment, but grace, not disappointment, but joy. Every unspoken word, every broken moment is now covered by my mercy. They see the truth of your heart, and they rejoice in your healing. I felt a weight lift from me, for even I had carried moments of guilt, wondering if I had failed in love before my grandfather passed. Now I knew those fears were swallowed by grace. Jesus continued, Tell them this, Jonathan. When they wonder if their loved ones are angry, the answer is no. When they wonder if their loved ones are hurt by words unsaid, the answer is no. What they feel now is perfect love. What they desire is your healing, your growth, your peace. The garden glowed brighter, and I knew these truths were meant to heal hearts across the world. Then Jesus lifted his hand again and said, Jonathan, there is something more you must see. Love in heaven does not diminish when it is shared, it multiplies. Sarah does not only love Emma, she now loves every child with a perfect maternal love. Your grandfather does not only care for you, he participates in the care of all his spiritual family. In heaven, love is infinite. It is not weakened by being given to many. It is multiplied in perfection. I gasped as I saw a vision before me. Multitudes of souls, radiant with light, each carrying love that flowed outward like rivers of fire, touching not only their families but the entire body of Christ. I saw how Sarah's love for her daughter had grown into a love for all children, yet within it remained a unique thread, distinct and precious, unbreakable. Jesus explained, This is why your loved ones are never sad. Their capacity for love has been infinitely expanded. They love you perfectly, and they also love all perfectly. They are not limited by earthly attachment. They are freed to participate in a great symphony of love that includes everyone. Yet their particular bond with you remains unique, eternal, and personal. I was overwhelmed by the beauty of this vision. To know that love not only continues but expands gave me a sense of awe I had never known. I turned again to Jesus. But Lord, what of those who did not believe, those who rejected your love before they passed? What do I tell people who fear their loved ones are lost? His expression grew tender but solemn. Jonathan, this is the mystery that cannot be fully explained on earth. My mercy reaches farther than human minds can grasp. My love extends beyond what theology can contain. What is revealed to you is enough. Trust me with the rest. Focus on the truth that love in me endures forever. Trust me with the mysteries of eternity that cannot yet be unveiled. For one day you will see clearly. For now, walk by faith. I bowed my head, humbled by his words. It was not for me to carry every answer. It was for me to trust. Jesus stepped closer, his presence filling me with calm. Now, Jonathan, you have seen the truths and you have experienced reunion. You have learned the mystery of grief and hope, but there is still one more gift I wish to give you. There is still one more encounter that will seal this revelation in your heart. I lifted my eyes, trembling. What is it, Lord? His smile was radiant, filled with anticipation. Someone else wishes to speak to you, someone whose love you already know, but whose words will strengthen you even more. Prepare your heart, for what you are about to hear will give you courage to carry this message to the world. The light in the garden grew brighter still, and I sensed another presence drawing near. My heart pounded as I realized this encounter was not over. The revelation was still unfolding, and what came next would change not only me, but everyone who would hear this testimony. The garden glowed with an intensity that made me shield my eyes. The light was not harsh but holy, filled with warmth and life. I felt the air change, as though creation itself was holding its breath. Jesus stood beside me, calm, radiant, his hand steady on my shoulder. "Jonathan," he said, "prepare your heart. You are about to hear another voice. This moment is not for curiosity, but for strength. What you will hear now will seal what I have shown you." My heart pounded as the brightness grew until it seemed to surround me entirely, and then I heard it, a voice, familiar, gentle, filled with love that had never left me. "Jonathan," the voice said softly, "do not be afraid." I turned, and before me stood my grandmother. She had passed when I was still young, yet her memory had shaped me deeply. She had been the quiet strength of our family, the one who prayed in the night, the one who carried burdens silently so that others could stand tall. Now she was here, whole, radiant, her face glowing with joy that no sickness, no sorrow, no shadow could touch. "Grandma," I whispered, my throat tight. She smiled, and it was the same smile I remembered from childhood when she would sit at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, speaking words of wisdom that always seemed to carry eternity in them. "My dear boy," she said, "I have watched you. I have prayed for you. I have celebrated every step you have taken. You must know this. The prayers I whispered on earth did not end when I left. In heaven, they live on. In heaven, they join the chorus of intercession that rises before the throne. You have never been without my love. You have never walked alone." Her words struck me like a river of peace. For so many years I had remembered her voice, her prayers, her faith. To hear her say that her love had never ceased, that her intercession had continued, was a revelation that washed away the lingering fear of abandonment. Jesus spoke softly, affirming her words. "This is what many do not understand. The love of those in heaven is not dormant. It is alive. It participates in my purposes. Their prayers on earth may have ended in time, but in eternity they continue in a form beyond human comprehension. This is why so many feel a sudden strength when they remember a faithful grandmother, a praying mother, a steadfast father. It is not imagination, it is the reality of love that has not ceased." I looked back at my grandmother, overwhelmed. "So you knew," I whispered. "You knew when I was lost, when I struggled, when I doubted." Her eyes were tender. "Yes, Jonathan, I knew. I was aware not in the way I once was, burdened with fear, but in the way of heaven, through peace, through the eyes of Christ. I saw not only your failures, but your future. I knew who you were becoming, and I rejoiced." I fell to my knees again, undone by love. The tears flowed freely, but they were not bitter. They were cleansing, healing, transforming. Jesus placed his hand gently on my head. "Jonathan, this is why you must tell them. Tell every broken heart, every grieving soul, that their loved ones have not turned away. Tell them that the bonds of love are alive. Tell them that prayers do not fall silent in death, but are fulfilled in eternity." I lifted my head, trembling. Lord, how can I carry this? How can I convince those who are drowning in grief that this is real? They will think it is only comfort, only story. His gaze pierced mine. "You are not meant to convince by argument. You are meant to witness. Speak what you have seen. Speak what you have heard. My spirit will confirm the truth in their hearts. The peace you feel now is the peace they will feel when they hear. That peace cannot be fabricated. It cannot be imitated. It will be the sign that these words are not from man, but from me." My grandmother stepped closer, her presence radiant with purity. "Jonathan," she said, "do not waste your voice on fear. Use it for hope. Speak with courage. Speak with tenderness. Speak with the authority of love. There are children who need to hear that their mothers still see them. There are widows who need to know their husbands still love them. There are fathers who need to know their sons are proud. Speak for them. Speak for us. Speak for the cloud of witnesses who cheer you on." I could hardly breathe under the weight of her words. Every syllable carried eternity. Every glance carried heaven. Jesus lifted his hand again, and I saw another vision. Multitudes of people on earth, sitting alone in bedrooms, walking through cemeteries, holding photos close to their hearts. Their faces were marked with sorrow, their eyes with longing. And then I saw the presence of heaven near them. Parents, children, spouses, friends, each one aware, each one filled with perfect love. The living could not see it, but it was there, and when they whispered words into the silence, those words were received, not as echoes, but as offerings of love that reached across dimensions. Jesus spoke, his voice like a river. This is why grief must not end in despair. This is why love must not be forgotten. What you have seen here is the reality of eternity. Death is not the wall the world believes it to be. It is a veil, and through me, love passes through that veil unbroken. I turned again to my grandmother. "What do you want me to tell them?" I asked. She smiled with tears of joy in her eyes. "Tell them we are alive. Tell them we are joyful. Tell them we love them with a love that is purer and stronger than ever. Tell them to live fully while they are on earth. Tell them to love each other deeply, to forgive quickly, to cherish every moment. For time on earth is short, but eternity is endless. Do not let grief steal their days. Let hope guide them until reunion comes." The words filled me with strength. They were not only for me, they were for everyone who would hear this message. Jesus then said, "Jonathan, you have seen enough for now. You have heard the voices you needed to hear. The truth has been planted in your heart, but there is one final step. You must return to the world you came from and speak. Do not keep silent, for silence allows despair to grow. Speak boldly, and my spirit will bear witness." The garden began to dim, not with darkness, but with a sense of conclusion, as though the encounter was drawing to a close. My grandmother's figure began to fade into the golden light, but her words remained etched in my heart. "I love you, Jonathan," she said one last time. "I am proud of you, and I will be waiting." The light enveloped her, and she was gone. I turned back to Jesus, my heart heavy yet overflowing with peace. "Lord," I said, "I will speak. I will tell them. I will share what I have seen." He placed his hand once more on my shoulder. "That is all I ask. Share the truth, share the hope, share the love that never ends, and I will do the rest." The vision began to fade. The garden dissolved into shadows of memory. I felt my body once again in the quiet of my prayer room, the candle still flickering, the Bible still open. Yet nothing was the same. My spirit was alive with revelation. My heart was burning with mission. My tears still flowed, but now they were tears of certainty, not doubt. I sat in silence, overwhelmed, knowing that I had received a gift not only for myself, but for every grieving soul. The message was clear. Love never ends. Love is transformed. Love continues from eternity. And I had been chosen to tell it. When the vision faded and the golden garden dissolved from my eyes, I found myself once again sitting in the quiet of my prayer room. The candle still flickered. The Bible was still open. Yet everything had changed. The weight of uncertainty that had tormented me for weeks was gone. In its place was a peace so steady, so deep, that I could only sit in silence, overwhelmed with gratitude. For nearly an hour, I did not move. I did not speak. I simply let the presence of what I had seen settle into me. My grandfather's love, my grandmother's prayers, Sarah's bond with her daughter, the 7 truths Jesus himself had revealed. They all swirled within me like rivers merging into one great current. I knew then that I was not given this gift only for myself. It was meant to flow outward, to touch every heart that had ever whispered into the silence, "Are you still there? Do you still love me? Can you still see me?" The answer was clear. Love does not end. It is transformed. The next morning, I awoke with this truth burning inside me. I picked up my phone and called Emma's father. My voice trembled as I asked if I could take her out for ice cream. He agreed. That afternoon, I sat across from her in a small shop, watching as she stirred her spoon through melting vanilla. She looked up at me with eyes that still carried shadows of loss, and I knew it was time. "Emma," I said gently, "your mommy can see you. She loves you as much as she ever did, even more now. She knows when you are sad, and she rejoices when you smile. She is proud of your brave heart." Her face lit up, her eyes wide with wonder. "I knew it," she whispered. "Sometimes when I miss her, I feel like love is hugging me, even when no one is there. I knew it was her." Tears filled my eyes right there in the ice cream shop. In that moment, I realized the revelation was not only for me, it was for her. It was for everyone who carries the ache of missing someone. The truth had power. It brought light where there was darkness. It brought peace where there was torment. In the days that followed, I began sharing what I had seen with others who grieved. I told them of the 7 truths. I told them of the reunion with my grandfather. I told them of my grandmother's words. I told them that silence is not absence, that love multiplies in heaven, that grief is natural but despair is not necessary. And I watched as their faces changed. The tears did not vanish, but the hopelessness did. The despair gave way to peace. The endless questioning gave way to rest. One widow held my hand and said, "For years I thought my husband must be sad in heaven, waiting for me, missing me. To know that he is joyful, to know that he still loves me, but without sorrow, it sets me free." A young man who had lost his brother said, "I thought the dreams I had were just my imagination. Now I know they are real. They are love reaching through eternity." I knew then that this message had to be spoken beyond private conversations. It had to reach the brokenhearted everywhere. So now, as you hear these words, know that they are not meant to be story or metaphor. They are testimony. They are truth. They are reality. Your loved one who embraced the love of Jesus is not gone. They are alive in his presence. They see what matters most. They love you still, perfectly, fully, without burden. The bond you share is not broken. It has been purified. You may wonder, but why do I still feel so much pain? Why do I still cry? The answer is simple. You were created for eternity. Separation hurts because your heart longs for reunion. Do not despise your tears. They are proof of love. But do not let those tears drown you in despair. Let them water the seed of hope. For the separation is temporary. Reunion is certain. Perhaps you carry guilt. Perhaps you fear that your loved one left this world disappointed in you, hurt by something you never said, or angry about mistakes you made. Let this truth set you free. In heaven there is no disappointment. They see you now through the eyes of Christ. They know your struggles with perfect clarity. They feel only pride in your courage, joy in your growth, and love for your healing. Perhaps you fear that the silence you feel means the bond was an illusion. Remember what Jesus said. Silence is not absence, it is invitation. He may be calling you to find comfort in his spirit first, to let him be your anchor. The bond with your loved one remains, even when you cannot feel it. Trust that it is held safely in his hands until your heart is healed enough to sense it again, and perhaps you wonder if your loved one is lonely, waiting in sadness. Hear this truth. They are not sad. They are not longing with pain. They are joyful, alive, engaged in the glory of heaven. They love you, but they are not bound by sorrow. Time for them is not like time for you. What feels like years for you feels like moments for them. When you meet again, it will feel as if no time has passed at all. So live. Live fully. Love deeply. Forgive quickly. Cherish every breath. Do not waste your days in fear or despair. Your loved ones do not want you to wither under grief. They want you to flourish until the day you join them. They want you to laugh again, to dream again, to walk in peace again. I tell you this because I have seen it, I have heard it, I have felt it, and I cannot remain silent. If this message has touched your heart, let it be more than comfort. Let it be a call to faith. Trust the one who showed me these truths. Trust Jesus, who conquered death, who holds eternity in his hands, who is himself the bridge between earth and heaven. Your loved ones are alive in him. Their love for you has not ended. It has been transformed into its eternal form. When you speak to them, they hear. When you remember them, they are honored. When you miss them, they love you even more. And one day, when the veil is lifted, you will see with your own eyes what I have seen. You will know without question that love never ends. As I close, I want to pray for you. Father, I lift every grieving heart who hears these words. Let the truth of eternal love settle into their souls. Replace despair with peace. Replace fear with hope. Replace silence with assurance. Let them know their loved ones are not lost but alive in your presence. Let them feel the certainty that the bond remains. Heal their wounds, strengthen their faith. Fill them with the joy of knowing that love is stronger than death. In Jesus' precious name, amen. My friend, if these words have spoken to your heart, share them. Do not keep them hidden. There are countless others who sit in silence tonight, wondering if love still endures. They need to hear this. They need to know that death is not the end of love. It is love's transformation into eternity. And as you go from this moment, carry one truth with you. The separation is temporary, the reunion is certain. And until that day comes, you are not alone. You are loved from heaven, and you are held by the one whose love never fails.